Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into a Stadium Through the Years video where we will be looking at the most recent stadiums to go abandoned, get demolished with the sports teams leaving them. What happens to these venues? And we're going to just kind of go through the list of the recent ones. A lot of them getting demolished. A few of them becoming college football facilities, kind of transitioning to it. Kind of a very sad, honestly. We're just going to look through a list of the most recent ones, starting with San Diego Stadium. I remember it as Qualcomm Stadium when the San Diego Chargers would play there. Of course, the Chargers moving to LA. The Padres, the baseball team, also played there up until 2003. It was a multi-purpose stadium. It closed officially in 2020 and was recently demolished in 2022. Looking back on it, I have to say it was probably one of the better multi-purpose stadiums. Maybe that's because the Padres left in 2003 and they could kind of customize it a little better, not having to worry about them. But when you compare it to like the Coliseum in Oakland when it was a multi-purpose, the Sun Life Stadium in Miami, it just felt more like a football facility. Looking at it, I mean, it's clear this thing is completely outdated. There's nothing special about it. The scoreboard is horribly dated, and the grandstands are very, very boring. It did go through an expansion. If you kind of look at it through the years, an upper deck expansion when I believe the Chargers came in, they added a bunch of seating. I really don't remember. I mean, when I was younger, I always remember the Chargers playing at 405, LaDainian Tomlinson, but Phillip Rivers. It's always sunny in San Diego. I don't think I ever remember a game at Qualcomm where it was raining. And then also San Diego State, they played in this stadium, the college football team as well. Again, it closed in 2020 and was recently demolished. Looking back at the next stadium that is still standing for sure, opening in 1994. What an absolute travesty this is. And if you guys don't know the story, Rangers Ballpark at Arlington, just beautiful. Top 10 stadium in the MLB. They had to make a decision on it. Either give it a retractable roof or outright build an entire new stadium that has a roof. And they end up going with the second route and just building a new stadium, even though this was really, there's just nothing wrong with it. It's unique. It's got an older vibe. It has cool offices in center field. And the one issue that they kept facing, the reason they needed the roof so bad, the controlled climate, baseball on Sunday afternoons, it's always day games. And what was happening in Texas, unfortunately, the humidity was so bad, people legitimately could not sit out in the sun at this stadium in the Sunday afternoon game. So they had to come up with something. I don't know if it was a thing to where the way the foundation was laid, they wouldn't be able to add a roof to it. That sometimes is an issue. But they end up just building a new stadium, which I kind of think the new one is cursed because I don't like the new one at all. The new one opened in 2020 with the whole pandemic. There were no fans the entire first year. It was kind of like a pitcher's park compared to the Rangers Ballpark at Arlington being notorious for offense. The Adrian Beltre, Elvis Andrus teams, Nelson Cruz, Josh Hamilton had the amazing year with the Rangers at this ballpark. Great offensive vibe, but it was just too hot during the day. So that is why 1994 to 2019, very short life. And now it is the home of an XFL team. It's so sad. How far has this ballpark fallen? Oh, it's terrible. What a beautiful, beautiful place. And you can see how they do it, especially with an XFL. You've got multiple sections, basically the entire upper deck, probably not even available to be purchased because, it seats like 46,000. The XFL certainly is not filling it up that high, but the stadium, of course, is still standing if it was built in 94. As for what's going to happen to it, I don't know. Maybe a college football team will play in it in the state of Texas, but right now, I believe it's just an XFL team. Maybe you'll also get soccer, but That is the current state of the Rangers Ballpark in Arlington. Moving to Turner Field, this is another one that is still standing, and a fun fact that a lot of people I'm sure don't know, this was Turner Field. This stadium was built, part of the Olympics in Atlanta, and then it was converted into the Atlanta Braves ballpark with that in mind. So they kind of made extra seating. You can kind of still see the outline of the infield and kind of how it's going to be set up. Overall, it ends up opening in 1997 after hosting, I believe, the Summer Olympics in 1996. And this was always a feeder ballpark. It was built for the Olympics. Well, let me correct that. It wasn't built for the Olympics, but it was built with the Olympics in mind. They had to kind of, make it to where it would fit. And there's nothing really wrong with Turner Field, but this is not a situation where it's like, the Rangers ballpark. This is a stadium that was probably bottom 8 or 9 in baseball. Atlanta getting their new, I think, Trust Park or Truist Park, whatever it's called. It looks really nice, and they definitely had a major upgrade in that sense. So Turner Field served its job. It served, honestly, I believe only 19 years. They moved out in 2016 into Truist Park, and now it hosts, is it Georgia State football? Yeah, Georgia State college football, and you can see that it is sad to see college football teams take over these stadiums. They're once MLB, and now it's just, you've got the whole upper deck tarped off. Very depressing, very depressing. Moving on down to the Metrodome in Minneapolis. Now, this one did end up getting destroyed. Well, first it got destroyed by the snow when it caved in, but then they actually did completely demolish it. It got demolished in 2013 and is now the site of US Bank Stadium. And if you guys remember how that whole process worked, Minnesota moved in to the Minnesota Golden Gophers field for 2 years as US Bank Stadium was being built. This was a multi-purpose stadium. I would say, it's a run-of-the-mill. You can tell it's completely outdated. I mean, look at what they're building now with Allegiant, with SoFi. It doesn't even compare. And even with US Bank, it's just, the thing is outdated and it needed to go. And Minneapolis was able to secure the funds and build a beautiful new stadium there. So just looking at it, kind of eerie to see, the roof collapsed and deflated. Apparently, when they were destroying it, they had to, or demolishing it, they had to deflate the roof first. So that's what they did, and it is now the site of US Bank Stadium. Looking at like the baseball aspect of the multi-purpose, it was always weird, the big right field, because they had the seats right there, but the seats were like pulled back. It's almost like, how at like college basketball gyms you see the seats get pulled back and stuff when they have to open up more, courts. That's kind of what it felt like. So not very professional. The MLB is probably glad that they only have one multi-purpose stadium left. And, that's the Oakland Athletics, who are probably going to move. And also the field, just the turf, not liked by very many players at all. I know they hate that kind of turf. So overall, it did its job, but it was nothing special at all. Moving to Candlestick Park, which opened back in 1960, and it was a baseball stadium only. That's the way it opened. It has had multiple seating expansions. They added the entire upper deck all the way around. The Giants played there till 1999, and you had the 49ers playing there until 2013. It was demolished shortly after 2013. I remember this ballpark and overall stadium, it was known for being freezing. It was always 50 degrees. I went on a vacation in San Francisco during the summer, and it was pretty shocking. I was like, man, I'm actually going on vacation, and it's getting colder. Because it was like June, and I went from like 75 degrees to 50 degree weather. It was I actually liked it. But just looking at it, guys, I remember, to me, the stadium fit those Jim Harbaugh coach teams so well. Defense, low scoring. You had those 4:25 afternoon games. Dante Whitner, Patrick Willis, Alex Smith on offense, and it was always low scoring. Very rare would you see a high-scoring game played in this stadium. Very rare. It just fit them so well. But in reality, this was a multi-purpose stadium built in 1960 that had 3 or 4 big seating expansions. So the thing does end up kind of looking wonky. I do like the little lights around. There's like little lights around each section of the interior of the facade. That's really nice. I'm surprised another team hasn't stolen that model and made like a futuristic version of it for their own. But overall, very, very good. Really, like, you know, just very unique stadium, very unique arrangement. You will never see something like this again because there's going to be no more multi-purpose stadiums, but they end up upgrading to Levi Stadium, which a lot of people really don't like Levi. It is rather, like a cookie cutter type NFL facility. And then the final one we're going to be looking at is the Georgia Dome. The last thing I remember about the Georgia Dome was that playoff game between Seattle and Atlanta with Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, the Legion of Boom. This is another one that had to go. I mean, just looking at the roof, it's crazy how quickly these things age. Like, could you imagine a stadium with that type of roof? It looks like a balloon. It looks like the latency of a balloon going up today. It just looks so bad. But they ended up building the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium right next to it, like a foot from it. It ends up closing on June of 2017, and it got demolished just 4 short months later. How about the cost of this stadium? Under $500 million. In comparison, SoFi Stadium cost $5 billion. This was roughly, 8 or 9 times less than SoFi Stadium. It's crazy, but yeah, it had to go. I mean, just the roof is really ugly. Overall, domes are domes that look like this to where there's no way to see the sky. These are being completely phased out. You're not going to see very many of these because it creates a terrible environment. You need to be at least able to see the outside, even if it is a controlled environment. That's really what they're going for now. But a lot of memories on this. Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, of course. And it ends up getting demolished right around 4.5 years ago. So guys, those are just some recent stadiums, sporting venues from around the major sports to close. Most of them get demolished, especially if they're older. And then if it's kind of a weird situation like Turner Field or the Rangers Ballpark in Arlington, they will try and save it at least for a few years and have it host events. But it really, honestly, it makes it even more sad to me. But either way, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.